So let's have a look at our cutting options. This is where we cut and slice our video. So we're going to show you some really simple techniques that's going to get you producing some really good quality cuts pretty quickly. So we need to look at adding blocks, we're going to look at cutting tools, and we're going to look at some transitions as well. So why might we add a block? Well, we're going to add a block a lot of the time to tidy things up. Now, a block can be a plain block, it can be a graphic, it could even be an animation or a piece of video. But adding blocks, especially to the front, to the top, and to the tail of our videos, to the front and the end, adding blocks is going to just give a little bit of breathing space before the video plays and give a bit of breathing space at the end of a video. So let's have a look how we might do that. So as I scrub along at the beginning of this video, I can see that I started about here. Now that means all of this before would have been me breathing, getting ready. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here and I'm just going to select the razor tool. Now the keyboard shortcut for that in Premiere Pro is C. I'm going to select that. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag and hover. And as you drag and hover, you should start to see that it selects the clips. Now if you find it doesn't select the clips, what you need to do is go up here to sequence and make sure that selection follows playhead. On my PC that I use for editing, this always switches itself off for some reason. So if you're dragging this along and it's not highlighting the sections you want to work on, then you need to go and select that setting in sequence. But what we're going to do here is we've made a selection. Now there's many different ways you can cut, many different tools you can use, but I wanted to show you a really simple process. I don't think sometimes it helps being shown 5 million different ways to do one task. I think the simplest way is often the best. Now what we've got here is we've got this bit of redundant video footage. Now we don't want that. So what we do is we right click and then it's going to give us two options up here. We can clear or we can ripple delete. Now clear is just going to delete it and leave the space behind, and that's what we want. But if we wanted to delete it and remove the space completely, we'd click ripple delete. So let's clear that. Now we've got this space here. So we want to add a block to this space. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to change it over to my select tool. Now the keyboard shortcut for this on a PC is V. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to drag and drop. And now I can move this backwards and forwards. So I'm going to create a little bit of space. Now be careful when you're dragging it backwards and forwards like this. If you've chopped loads of bits up and you drag the first bit over, it's going to overlap what's cut afterwards. Let me just show you that quickly. So if we put a cut there and then we selected that and we dragged it, it will literally overlap that area and you've just lost that piece of video. So if you wanted to move both of those, let's undo. What we would do is we would make sure we select all the highlighted areas, and then when we move it, they will all move. So let's just bring that back a little bit. Now what I want to do is just step back a couple of steps and remove that cut. Edit, undo. I can use Control Z, my keyboard shortcuts here, but I just like to do it that way. That's nice and easy and quick. So we've got that. And what I want to do is add a block to the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a title, and we're going to create new title, and we're going to create a default still. Now this is going to pick up the settings from my project file and from my main video file. So I'm okay with that. And what I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this a white blank. Okay, so I've created my white blank. It's now dropped into my project area. I should really name this. I've left it project untitled. So let's just save that. Save as. I want to teach you my bad habits. Click save. Now it's our sample project. So it's in our project area. We've got a white blank. Now what we want to do is just go into that now and we want to edit that. So the first thing we want to do is change the duration of that white block. So I'm going to click on speed duration. And I'm going to change this from 5 minutes, which is the default. I'm going to change this now to 1.5 seconds. So that's going to be 1:30. Click OK. I've set the default length for the white blank. Now we don't actually have a white blank yet, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to double click on the tool. That's going to bring the tool up, and we're going to see that we don't actually have a white blank. Now we could add text in here, we can create titles, we can do all sorts of stuff in here, but all I want to do is I just want to make sure we've got a background. So I'm going to click the background option here, and then I'm going to go to my color selection tool, and I'm just going to drag it down to the bottom left, which is white, pure white. Click OK, and now I'm going to close that, and now I've got a white blank for editing. I can now pick that white blank up from the project area, and I'm going to drag it until a little triangle indicates that it's connected and they're snapped together. So what we want to do now is I just want to zoom in a little bit, and I've now got a white blank. Now, the only problem is that's a hard transition. So what we want to do is add a transition so they fade together. Now I'm going to show you essentially 3 transitions. So what we're going to do is go to Effects here, click on Effects, and what we're going to do is go to Video Transitions. We're going to drop that down. We're going to go to Dissolve, drop that down, and what we've got is Cross Dissolve, Morph Cut, and a hard cut. This is a hard cut. It's just a cut with no transition. So that's the first one. So I will use a hard cut when I'm recording and I'm presenting and I forget my words. I'll freeze solid where I am. And then what I will do, I will pause, gather my thoughts. I will literally physically freeze. So let me show you what I mean. So I'll be presenting like this, and then I'll lose my flow. So I'll be presenting then. So I will pause, gather my thoughts, and then start talking again. And that's how you get, no, I just did it then. But we're going to leave that in so you can see it. But that's how you get around recording long stretches of video. It's a little bit about presentation skills, about pausing. If you're doing this for your own videos, pausing where you are, and then you can do a hard cut and there'll be a slight little click, but not too much of a transition there. So what I want to do here, I want to put a nice dissolve. So I'm going to take my dissolve tool, I'm going to drop it on there. I can change how long that is by just clicking on it. If I zoom in a little bit, it's a little bit difficult when it's so small. You can go in there and you can double click using the selection tool. Just double click, and that's going to bring up the length. So you can change that to your preference. That's okay for me. And then what that will do, let's just press play, and we're going to get a fade. So that's adding a white block at the beginning. Now another tool that we can have is a morph cut. Now a morph cut is very good if you want to cut out a big section of paused audio. So let's just say here, I want to cut out a little bit here. Okay. Now the problem with morph cut is you have to have an in and an out that matches. So it's going to be really difficult to use morph cut here because there is no in and out. So let's just scroll on a little bit more. Okay. So here we've got a bit. Now this is not normally where I do it, but I want to show you how it works. So let's just say I use this as my in. I'm going just to use my cut tool. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to drag along, and maybe I just want to remove a few seconds. As soon as my hand moves, it's not going to morph. What morph is going to do is going to say, do you know what? I think we're going to patch this. We're going to create some frames in between, and we're going to create a softer transition. So what I would do is I'd cut my out. So I've got my in and my out. I've cut them. So I've clicked here and I've clicked here. That's the section I want to remove. So now I'm going to right click. And this time I'm not going to clear. I'm going to ripple delete, and that will remove that piece of video. What we want to do is we want to drag morph cut over, drag it onto the line there. And what morph cut is going to do is going to analyze in the background, and it's going to work out what it thinks the missing frames are, and then it's going to create those missing frames. It's very good if you're doing talking heads videos and you've made a little mistake or a little fumble with your words and you just want to pick it up again. You're going to get this morph cut. So let's just play that. So let me just do that again for you. Just watch the cut. So let me just come back a bit. So what it's done is evened out that transition. But you have to remember, you have to keep the in and out. You want the movement to be quite close. It will work it out. But if your hand is high in one and low in another, it won't look quite right. But have a play with that. So that's the 3 main transitions you're going to need. So believe it or not, that's pretty much the cutting tools and transitions you need to know at the very beginning. Like I said, there's much more advanced tools, but this is going to give you the core skills. These are the core tools and techniques you will use and build upon and add to as you go forward with learning how to cut and move and paste stuff together.